Anyway, super pumped to have you on, man. I was expressing to you last night and today. I Since the beginning of this podcast, it's been about a year. I'll like note in this bullet points of things I want to talk about. It's really like a brain just to input information about the guest for my subconscious. And I'll refer to it here and there, but a lot of the episodes I'll still write the notes, but then I just don't even open this thing up. I'll just like let it flow. But there's a couple, you know, you have such a skill for just being like on the fly, on the go content creation while you've been journeying in different countries for 9 months. And even before you went abroad, you still had this, you're a man of many skills. But this was just so cool to watch you abroad while we're still here in Austin and show your experiences. And you're just very open, very vulnerable, very, you just put your heart out there. And I was scrolling through and I had stated to you that, I peered into your soul and it really hit my heart and put me in the feels. And yeah, I went for a walk after like an hour of taking notes and I was like, wow, I had so many different feelings, and all those feelings were, even just like reflecting on myself, but just like how you are having so much fun, but there's also difficulties with traveling alone. And then, yeah, just, each country you've been in, finding different ways of like how the culture, how the culture is. And so I wasn't sure how long you were going to be in the United States. So I wanted to get you on and talk to you about it. And, you've been a friend of mine that I met pretty much, I think it was a couple months after I first touched down here. So I moved to Austin in September of 2021. And I think the first Live a Great Story night was like, I think fall of 2021, or maybe it was like
April 22.
April 22. Okay. And it was so, I was reflecting on this last night. For me, like I went to, I think 3. And the first one, all of them, I was driving home back, after these story nights in which you've got a little stage and people share their stories, but then we do like micro breakout sessions. And I just felt so good. And I was reflecting on, prior to moving here in 2021, everything that was happening with COVID. And I got caught up in a lot of the uncertainty and like discomfort of what was happening in the world, And I also felt kind of like anxious to be able to express myself with other people because like, COVID kind of created a lot of divisiveness or strong opinions and whatnot. And so to go to story night and you just kind of put together this container of sharing our own stories based on themes that you pick that just brought out loving conversations. It was so nourishing for me because I was at that point. Yeah, I just felt like, I was a little isolated or also new to Austin. And so for you to be able to do that, it was, I remember just I was actually like yelling in my car after. I was like, yeah, let's go. Like I was so happy, And so I just want to say thank you for putting those together because I actually had, oh my God, his name is totally slipping. I think his name's Aaron, but he goes by Deep Snap. I'm totally forgetting it, blanking on his name. But he showed up to your first story night. And I don't think he was like he was kind of just starting his journey with taking pictures and traveling the country. And he's blown up now, he's really in his element. And I had him on, and it was because I met him that night. And so yeah, you're a man of many, many skills, and you're able to pull these containers and, and, you know, just, 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 pull together a community, and this is like through the business that you've created with Live a Great Story, and then to see you go across the world, sometimes with really cool friends that you just met, and then also being on your own. And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of self-reflection. And just a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for you. You're one of a kind, dude. You're one of a kind. So yeah, man, I'm glad you're back, but I'm also glad that you're going to be traveling again. And I hope I can come meet you out in Jordan, depending on the state of the world and if it aligns with finances and stuff for myself. But dude, yeah, it's been an honor to meet you and to like, I feel like, and I'm sure you've gotten tons of comments from other people, because you do put a lot of content out there. Like, I grow watching you. It helps me kind of reflect on my own insecurities and on the expansion of the world. Like, I've always lived in the United States. I've traveled once to Thailand when I was like 24, but I wasn't by myself. I was with a friend, and it was only for like 2.5 weeks. And you definitely learn a lot about yourself. And, there was one quote from one of your posts. It was a recent post, and you were back in Austin. And you said, "It's weird. Everyone speaks English, yet so few people talk to each other. Culture shock is the small things." And I was like, whoa. We're such like an individual, like the individuality within the United States, like, that's a big eye opener, because sometimes we're all just kind of somewhat narrow. I mean, our egos make us, somewhat narrow-minded, and we kind of create these walls. And so when you're going to all these different countries and speaking with these people and whatnot, and everybody is just so community based, and coming back here, and seeing people are just kind of, don't get me wrong, there's a community workout that's just commencing right now, and everybody, we share stories, get to meet new people, and Austin's definitely a special place. But that was, that was cool to see. And so definitely want to unravel some of your stories. I know you've portrayed a lot of them, but would love to, peer into your experiences. You started in Asia, right? Yeah. Okay. Wasn't Vietnam? Thailand. Okay.
Years in Bangkok.
Bangkok? Okay.
Amazing fireworks show. And what are the temples? Waterun, I think, is the temple, and over the water, and it's just fireworks.
Yeah.
And that was a cool way to start the year, like in the trip, really.
Yeah. When I was in Thailand, we went to so many temples. After a while, we got sick of them, because we were just like picking all the temples, and we were like, we could do other things, because a lot of it's like very touristy. But
one of the things I realized reflecting on this, because everybody says that, they're like, another church, another temple, another museum. It's always, you get tired of them after a while. And you can also get tired of landmarks. So most people, when they think of travel, they think of this, view, or this old thing, or, whatever, the site. And almost never is it the actual site that's cool. So you go to the Coliseum, you walk, you get dropped off in a cab, you walk up, you go inside, and then you walk around for a little bit and you leave. Mm. And it's like, all right, that's cool. It's like this old thing. But after a while, those get kind of boring, because it's so easy to show up and do it and leave, mm-hmm. that there's not much emotion around it. And what I found is that, and the best way to see these places and to do these things and to go to the like, highlight things that maybe look good in photos or, are the place to see is you got to bookend that experience with something on the front and something at the end, because it's so much more valuable, so much more of an experience, so much deeper when you have to earn it in a certain way, or you have something that you go through before and then you see it and you're like, all right, that was cool. And then you do something after, because you can kind of make this more of an emotional experience versus just like checking this box. And so in general, it's like, okay, like, yeah, sure, we can go see all these beautiful things, but like, how do you make it more of an adventure to go there?
Yeah.
So that you're not just like, okay, cool, we saw this view, took this photo, check, let's keep moving. And so that's what happens with temples, because you're just like, you drive up, you look at it, you walk around for a bit and leave. And it's like, that's not that cool. But like, let's say it was hard to get there, or, you had some detours, you had to catch a weird ride and you had to, like find it because you were lost. Like those are the things that make stuff better. And so it's something that, I think I picked up a lot of like rules, or, I call them rules, but, guidelines, or, operational like plans or something, strategies to like, okay, how can we like maximize this experience more so than just like seeing this thing?
Yeah.
So, like a little, and I think it goes with like, I kind of started this list of like, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like lessons learned from the road that you can apply in everyday life. And so I have like a list of like 10 things that are like that. Then, okay, cool. If I know this to be a truth and I've like tested it over and over again, then how can I use these truths in, my life to maximize my experience, whatever it is. And so I think that's one of them. And like, I think parallel to that, because we're talking about like views and stuff, is I have a rule or like a saying that's like, views ain't shit without homies. Because so much of it is like the experience of being with other people. And so it's like, yeah, like I've been to some amazing places by myself looking at this incredible view, and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. And then I look around and I'm like, fuck, I'm alone. Like I want to like grab someone and be like, dude, look at this shit. But it's just like, and I mean, there's definitely a time and a place for being alone and solitude and stuff, and appreciating things for what they are without having other people. I'm also like much more of an extrovert, and I thrive on that. But so kind of coming back, I realized that my goal is to just like, how can I go back out there with people? How can you come to Jordan? How can I encourage other people to do stuff like this, that they can, that we can go together and create these shared memories together? Because then, we've known each other for 2 years now. And then like 10 years from now, we're like, bro, you remember that one time? Like that's the stuff that is really important to me. Because it's just like, humanity is about connection, and then it really is community and love, like when it all comes down to it. And so doing that with like living life with people, whether it's the Squatch workouts or anything, sitting in a Temescal or it's like that stuff's great alone, but like especially for me, different people from different places, different backgrounds, different cultures, languages, like that's so powerful, because that you were talking about this bubble that we live in, and it's like very insular. So it's like, how do you break out of that? And it's not by doing the same stuff with the same people and the same views. It's like, cool, if everybody does hape and ayahuasca and like eats really healthy and goes to sleep at 10 p.m., wakes up at 5 to go to the gym, like, okay, that's great, like this really healthy community. But that's not going to push your understanding of the world or your understanding of yourself, or some of these things where you need that outside influence, that outside perspective, the external insight or perspective that can help us look at things differently.
Yeah, it's funny because at one of your Live a Great Story nights, we did a micro session, and Alexander Concepcion, I think that's how you say his last name, very eccentric and unique individual. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. One of the things that he stated was he was traveling abroad in the most like beautiful setting somewhere, I think in Europe. And he felt sad. And I think it was I think he said because he was alone and he wasn't like, you can be in this most beautiful setting, but it just kind of reinforces what you're saying. Like, we are so wired to be social creatures. And if you don't have it, maybe in his moment, I think it's happened for me too, where you're in a beautiful geographic setting and you're just by yourself and you can't share it with people. You know, he had this beauty on the outside, but in the inside he was feeling a little bit of sadness or whatever it may have been. And it just goes to show like how community and love and connection is so important. And there's another thread that I had.
Well, let me build off that. So we talk about our community here in Austin and the US in a certain type of way. So we have very much cultural community here.
Mm-hmm.
And going to other places and experiencing their culture and community in a different way was really enlightening because it gave me so much more perspective. It really broadened my view of what life is about, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like most of the rest of the world, they don't leave their community.
Yeah.
We leave our communities here. We leave our home. We go to college. You go to a different city. You leave college. You probably get a job in another city.
Mm-hmm.
Then, your siblings go to another city. Your parents maybe move and retire and go to another city. And so we're so massively dispersed here geographically.
Mm-hmm.
There's a culture element too where we're conditioned to do that. And so you have this significant lack of foundational community that creates, I think, a lot of the problems that we have here. And this has been happening for, let's say, 50 years or more. And so you have people leaving their community and not having something to stand on. Yes, we have an amazing community here in Austin. You have friends, that come to Squatch every day, go to the workouts, you're sitting in ice baths together. And that's really good and really powerful and strong and important because we don't have the other version, right? So we don't have the foundational community of, your cousins live down the street or, you're constantly at your uncle's house hanging out with him and his kids because your parents are somewhere else or whatever. And so we don't have that as much here. It does exist in like small towns and stuff, but I think it's also not as prevalent as it used to be. But it just creates this like, it's like a missing thing. And I'm super grateful that I don't have that. So I'm from Austin, grew up, all my siblings live here. My parents live here.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle lives here. I have friends that I've been friends with since about 4th grade. And so I have that way more than other people, which I'm super grateful for. And undoubtedly this community like that, it's not even community. It's just like concrete love.
Yeah.
And I know that no matter where I go in the world, what I do, I can always come home. And home is strong. Home is loving. Home is safe. Home is the nest, right? And I can fly away and come back to the nest. And I know now, having seen it and like also seen it through other people's eyes, seeing myself through other people's eyes and stuff, I'm super grateful for that. But it's just not how it works in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, along with other things, that we have so much depression, we have so much anxiety, we have so much fear, we have so much, all these mental health problems and stuff is because we don't have that.
Yeah.
And a lot of other places don't have that. Maybe they're not as developed. So there's definitely some psychological issues that come with like literally having everything you need. And you're like, okay, well, like life is perfect. Let me create some problems, which is also a very big thing here. Like the problems that we have like are just made up problems. Whether they just happen to be made up or like some government entity or health organization said, this is a problem. And you're like, yeah, this is a problem that didn't exist before. So yeah, I mean, I think going out there and seeing it in real life in other places, and then coming back here and appreciating for what it is. I mean, at the core, this goes back to like music ain't shit without homies. It's like, it really is love, right? Like at the end of it, it's like you get to in your life, you've made all the money, you have all the experiences, whatever, but you don't have people that are going to be there for you. Then like, fuck you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that disbursement has been happening, I mean, since the early 1900s for sure. And that's for, you know, a lot of people would move here from different countries for opportunity, for that American dream. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I moved to Austin for opportunity, and I did see like something that I did have on the forefront of my mind was like, it does feel like there's a community foundation or some sort of like cultural energy that I resonate with. But yeah, all my family's back in Massachusetts, right? What's cool is like some of them might be moving here, which is, or at least getting a house here, which is dope. Very grateful for that. Can see them more often. But that, yeah, that's a hard hitting point, that foundational community. It may be sparse, and a lot of our maybe mental or emotional or certain internal problems come from, I have to do this on my own, or I have to like, you know, move here so that I can make enough money to kind of be someone, you know, which is an interesting,
I know, complete lie.
Yeah, I know, but that's like how it's sold, right? So that's, you know, there's documentaries on this about consumerism and when it started and how it was started, and we've been through our economic system. And listen, I mean, I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm in the Bitcoin space. I love capitalism or free market economics, and I'm very grateful for the ability to express creatively freely, right? People that are in other areas of the world may not have that freedom, but yeah, they're much more closer with their families. But yeah, I mean, the American dream, I mean, we're seeking things outside of ourselves to feel good about ourselves, which is a never ending hamster wheel. So yeah, that's a hard hitting thing, I think, for people in America to kind of grasp. And I do feel like since I moved here, I'm creating a foundation. But yeah, I mean, the trade-off of moving here was like, oh, I'm not going to see my family as much, you know? But yeah, man,
let me like, we'll build on that, but jump to like a different thing. So you'll dig this, because I somehow ended up at a blockchain conference in Kenya on the coast. And I was leaving from Nairobi to Mombasa / North Mombasa, this beach town called Kilifi.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on the train. I was going to go with a girl that I had met, and she's a local. And we're going to go to spend a couple of days in Kilifi together. And I get to the train station. You know, Kenya is pretty undeveloped in certain ways, and they don't have like as much organization and stuff. But the most organized thing they have there is the railroad, which was built by the Chinese.
Okay.
So the Chinese investments and stuff are like proliferating all around the world. And so the China railroad is a thing in Laos, for example, and Kenya, and I think also the Tanzania one is Chinese. So it leaves right on time. Like you can't miss the train. Mm-hmm. If you are late, it leaves without you. They don't wait for anybody. It leaves at 8:00. And this girl freaking missed the train.
Oh no.
And I don't have data. So I'm like at the train station, like bumming data from people, like trying to message her like, hey, where are you? You know, we had left at like 6:30 in the morning. I had left at 6:30 in the morning, and you know, and I just like don't hear from her. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? And then I'm like on the train. I'm like, where are you? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm on the train and I'm trying to get data from somebody like, yo, can you hotspot me? None of the Kenyans are going to hotspot me because they're like super stingy with their data. And when I had boarded the train, I had seen this dude and he was not black, which there was not that many people on the train that were not black.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, dude. They're like, I'm going to go ask this guy. So I was like, what's up, bro? Can I bump some Wi-Fi from you? And he was super cool. He's like Indian, Australian, and we ended up hanging out. He hot sauced me. Homegirl's like, yeah, miss a train. I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you never. And so we're chopping it up, and he's like, yeah, you're here for the blockchain conference? Like, it's called ETH Safari. And I'm like, no. He's like, really? Like, that's why all the people that aren't black on this train are going to like this safari.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And so we ended up hanging out for a while. And it was really cool because like through him, he's like super into the blockchain space and all these other people were. So I kind of didn't hang out with him the whole time, but I ended up going to one of their like closing party, and it's at this amazing venue. It's called Beneath the Baobabs. Baobabs are these amazing like African trees. They call them like the upside down trees, and they're huge, beautiful. And so this venue is like a music festival space, but then so we basically went to like a EDM show, and so it's like all like people I traveled from like around Africa to come to this blockchain conference.
Yeah.
And so through that, I was able to interact with a good amount of blockchain people, right? So we're talking about community, we're talking about opportunity, we're talking about, let's say free market. And I have my perspective of that from being an entrepreneur, being from America, but I was talking to like Africans who don't have any of this.
Right.
And, for them, the application or the adoption is so strong because it's like a need. It's not a want. They don't have Apple Pay. They don't have direct deposit. They don't have a credit card. They don't have any of these financial infrastructures that make our country work. And so they're like, yo, we can build using decentralized blockchains to solve these problems. And like, we need to build decentralized solutions to these problems through technology. And so, mixing that understanding of a sort of capitalism, I would say, and entrepreneurship and creativity and stuff, but also having this foundation of like, yeah, like we don't have anything, like it does, like our infrastructure is non-existent. And so I had a very specific conversation with this one girl, really smart, super smart. She had been introduced to me as like basically the A+ number one player in this DAO that they had that was, all of the hackers and they were like just real brilliant blockchainers. And, we're like chopping it up and she, we're talking about America and stuff. And she's like, yo, I just don't understand why y'all have these problems. Like, why do you have multiple bathrooms? Like what's up with LGBTQ? Like what is like all this PC stuff? Like, and she was, really smart, like very intelligent. And she basically had this like quote of me. She's just like, we don't have any of these problems because we're just trying to eat,
Right.
and we're just trying to live.
Right.
And so it was this really unique, it was like, whoa, like this is so different than my worldview and how I see stuff and the life here in Austin. And then to get like real direct, insight from her and perspective on a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, that they just like, they're like, they can't even comprehend it. It's not like she literally she just kept being like, yeah, I watched this documentary. Like, so she was really like educated, but there's a difference between like experience and like knowledge. And so she just could not, from an experiential standpoint, understand these things that are so like almost commonplace. Trauma, personal development, like self-actualization, like all these things are like they just don't even exist there, and they're happier than most of us who are going through that stuff and who have like immense, basically infinite opportunity to solve these problems. And so, chopping it up with her and some of these guys and stuff was like a really cool
Mm.
experience. And especially, I think you would have enjoyed it just because of your, deep interest in Bitcoin and,
Yeah.
and all of this.
Yeah. I mean, Ethereum and Bitcoin are definitely like very different. But yeah, it's so interesting to just hear that, because they're just trying to bring into their life the basic necessities. We have plenty of that. We have an abundance of that. We have, I feel like, just an abundance of technologies or food or whatever it may be. And we've kind of strayed away from kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just what we need, like the basic hierarchy of needs. And we've just kind of immersed ourselves into these other things that kind of get us away from ourselves and maybe create a lot of illusions. Like when she said, I don't understand PC culture, I don't understand LGBTQ and all this other stuff. Or yeah, other problems, personal development and all that. It's like, I think we immerse ourselves into so many things outside of ourselves that we tend to lose and stray away from our true nature. And coming back to just minimalism or just the basic necessities. And obviously you want to maybe improve your life, right? But I think it's almost too extra here in America.
Improving your life doesn't make your life better. There's a certain level.
You don't need more to.
You don't need more. You have a dishwasher. It makes your life a little easier, but it doesn't make your life better. Like having to wash your dishes.
Sometimes it's almost nicer to wash your dishes.
Yeah.
Because you're able to meditate in a way. It's almost like a form of meditation.
Yeah. You're like, okay, there's this sink full of dishes and I have to clean it,
Yeah.
And like I have to set aside some time to do this, and it's going to take slightly longer than if I had a dishwasher and I threw it in, So yes, a dishwasher makes your life easier, and it can make your life, like a lot of things can make your life easier, but like there's no level that your life like is easy, Like I was with some friends the other day and we were talking about hyper wealthy, like ultra rich people. I think this girl, I don't remember the exact situation, but I was with people who were either like directly related to or had experience or work with, like, let's say billionaires, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my friend was like, yeah, like at a certain point, it just makes sense to have everything in your life taken care of for you at a certain amount of wealth. And I was just like, dude, that's so fucked. Like, yes, of course, but like, it was just such a dirty statement to me, and nothing against him. But I was just like, dude, if I had all the money in the world, I would, like, it doesn't make sense for me to do all this stuff. Like, yeah, it would be cool to have like a driver that just drives me everywhere 24/7, and I can just sit in the back and like do other stuff. But it's like, that's not going to like necessarily make my life too much better. Maybe it frees me up to make more money, but like, so what, like maybe it gives me a little bit more time to like do stuff, but most people waste time. I would waste my time if I had a driver. Like I'm already on my phone driving all the time anyway. So it's like what am I going to do with like an extra 20 minutes? Right. Except spend time with people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we have all these things that get added onto our lives that we need. And I see this talking to people a lot recently. They're like, yeah, man, if I could only get to this one point, then, if I can get here, then I can do this. And there's this like carrot that we just have been cultured to, like, it's just part of our reality.
Yeah.
Like, if we can just get to this point, then life will be better. But like that carrot never arrives, right? Like life isn't ever easy. Like it's easier, but there's always more. It's like a half-life thing.
Yeah.
And so, this is something I've been struggling with from like a money standpoint and like a personal ambition standpoint, where it's like, why do I need to like make more money if it's not really going to solve any of my problems? Like maybe I have future problems that it will solve, and that really only pertains to like health, I would say, and family. But like, I don't necessarily like need money, and I really don't want money. it's something that I'm trying like I had developed a really good money perspective, and then now I like kind of changed it, and now I'm trying to like get it back a little bit because I'm like I can make a lot of money, and it'd probably be a good thing for a lot of reasons, but also is it that much better, and like do I need it? And then I'm like, I don't really need it, man. I could do without. And then I see like the amount of money that some of my friends make and stuff, and I'm like where does this stop for you? You know, like you make X amount, let's say 100, 200, 300,000 a year. And you're like, oh, if I can only go a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like you do a couple $100,000 for a couple of years, like you should stop working for the rest of your life. Like you don't need millions of dollars to like never work again, you know? So these are kind of some of the conflicts I have coming back from traveling and, integrating other people's perspective of the carrot and why they work and how they work and what their values are and what's important to them with our values here, and kind of finding a middle ground because theirs isn't better. And I think if I spent more time in some of these places, and like there would be more cracks in the foundation that I would see, or issues that they have that we don't have here, and those are probably like apples to apples, pretty similar issues. But the gratitude of like, okay, like I actually have an opportunity to like solve some of these things and not have to deal with some of these other things but that's been this conflict of money and ambition and, chasing the carrot, but like not for the wrong reasons, just for the reason of growth and journey and process and the road and the story and everything. So I don't know, kind of rambling a bunch about a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I liked in the beginning of what you were just saying, someone that wants more things so that they can just kind of automate their life, and then they can solve all their problems, or at least get to a point where they can kind of just, I forgot exactly that's like the phrase that you use, but it's like they're seeking more money, and that money will help them with having a driver that drives them around, or pays for that house and all these different things. And they, might have the perspective that once they do all this, life will solve a lot of my problems. It's like, no, like you're always going to have challenges. We're like we're on a rock in the biggest universe, and we're constantly evolving, constantly. Entropy is making us, all of us kind of breaking down in a way. And so you have to constantly, have a self-awareness towards that evolution. You're gonna get into issues. So like, let's say you're someone that is in that position where they have their own driver and their own house, they have tons of money. It's like, well, you're gonna get old and maybe your knee is fucking you up. And instead of like rehabilitating it and finding ways to just do the work yourself, to stretch and whatever it may be, you're just paying people to like do certain therapy. Like there's just people that I've met that they're relying on others for their service, which is great in certain aspects to have specialists, but like they don't maybe do like preventative stuff for that knee, right? Like they can seek and gain knowledge to solve their own maybe issues that they face, but you're always going to face challenges. It's never ending in my view, because you're evolving, you're getting older, and there's certain things that happen in your life and experiences that you go through that you're kind of moving through the flow of the present moment and understanding yourself more. And so trying to seek something outside of yourself to solve everything, that's never going to happen. And having more money, I mean, famous quote, Biggie Smalls, more money, more problems, so I think, and there's other wealthy people out there that they'll automate their life, and even with their own children, like they'll have nannies that pretty much take up like 50 to 60 to 70% of taking care of their children. It's like, and when you do that with all other aspects of your life, like you don't really have a sense of maybe appreciation in a way for those processes. Like the work is like the process is the best part. And yeah, I think to something that has come to my mind, like, you know, having more money could create more, it most likely will create more problems. But if you set these like pure intentions and desires, like for you, like expanding these stories and meeting new people in these different cultures, like having enough money just to be able to keep doing that is a great thing. But if you're like, I need more money to have a house, and I want the house so I can, I think that, and I also think we're biologically wired to create, so there's a need to be creative, and it's having that. I always kind of go back to life just being a constant dance of balance, and an elegant dance and an art of just, being self-aware and not in this particular case, not seeking something outside of yourself in order to feel a sense of self-love and self-respect, so that's a trap. It's a big trap, and it's really cool to hear these different perspectives from people, from your experiences and your perspective of money too. Like, one thing that comes to my mind, like, I don't need to be ultra wealthy. I don't even know if part of me has had desires to make this podcast huge so that I can speak to these guests. In my view, is like, I believe a pure intention to be able to have these conversations with really cool people. And like, once my podcast is super small, these like really smart people, creative people are going to want to expand their ideas on a platform that's bigger, right? Maybe have more impact. And then also to be able to have that freedom to maybe travel more. Like, that's the one thing that I find like a trap. Like, I don't need to make $500,000 a year, but I do work for a company that I have to work a 9 to 5. It's like service, right? And there's definitely plenty of opportunities out there to be able to plug into a job where you're making a steady income, and then you can just do whatever time. So that's the only thing, I need this to be able to do that. So for me, like, I need this to be able to go do what Zach's doing. I need this type of job at least. Right. That's the only thing that I find myself in. And that's just like, you can do that. You could adapt, create your own business, or I don't know, if you were a coder coding for a company and they were like, you can, as long as you get these tasks and these projects done, it doesn't matter what time you do it. Like, you could be like, I actually know someone from my company, he actually works a 9 to 5. Like, he's a client facing team, or he's on a client facing team. He's in Greece for like a half year. And he has to work, I forgot the time difference, but he has to start working at like 1 p.m. and then work till like 9 p.m. But he's totally fine doing that. So it's like, it is still possible.
There's a difference between working from somewhere else and not working and being somewhere else. And it's like, what you're saying is kind of, to do some of these things, you need a job that's going to provide you this opportunity or this freedom or this space,
and not to be like, it doesn't have to be a luxurious trip and like all these travels, right? It could be these bare necessities, spending as minimal as possible, but you still kind of need that steady stream of income unless you have a decent amount of savings.
Well, what if you don't need that, And I think that's what, yeah, I mean, there's the element of, yes, like at some point you need money, right? And there's income outspending or whatever. And so most likely, and age and longevity and, safety and stuff for the long run. So you want to have some sort of money, but there's definitely a difference in traveling and working and traveling and not working.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so most people, I think they want to have kind of a nomadic 9 to 5 opportunity to work somewhere else. And of course, that's awesome. And if you can live in Greece and like work, then that's awesome, because you're going to make USD and spend it, in euros or whatever in Greece. So that's a cool thing. But I would say that, like, a lot of that's like, you're coming into that with like a hypothesis or a thesis about something that is probably true as you look at it now. But what travel does, and like true travel, not vacationing or like even nomad travel, like living in another place, when you travel and you immerse and you meet and you experience and you adventure, then it changes how you think about stuff. And I think, like, for example, this guy that I was talking about, who I met on the train, he's been living as a nomad for like 2 years, kind of traveling, going to blockchain conferences and, going to a place for a month or whatever. And so then he didn't step into my world, but he was able to get out of his world into a kind of a middle ground. And it was like a significant experience for him. He's like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I want more of this. I'm like, bro, you've been doing this for 2 years. Like, you should have been doing this all along, right?
Yeah.
But you took your Sydney lifestyle of how you live in Sydney and you just transplanted it to like all these other places. I'm like, it's better. It's different than living in Sydney, but you're still having mindsets, paradigms, habits, all these things that are from that life. And so when you copy paste your 9 to 5 into a new location, then it's restrictive in your outlook and perspective and opportunities because you have strings attached. And so all this is to say, like, a huge recommendation that I have for all Americans that want to make their life better is take extended periods off where you're not working. If you quit a job, please, for fuck's sake, do not go into another job 2 weeks after that. Like, literally, this is the stupidest thing you can do. And so many people do this, and so many people in other countries do not do this. They quit a job and they go travel for a couple of months and then they go back. And it's very rare in the US to do that it's such a wasted opportunity. And same thing with your house. If you rent a condo or an apartment or whatever, and then you break and you're like, oh God, I can't leave because I can't travel for a long term because I have my lease. Like, break in your lease and go leave for 2 or 3 months and come back and get another one. And it's like, it will change your life. But it's just, no one's telling people that, it's like your parents are like, no, like, don't travel, like your other job's like, cool. Like, you get 2 weeks off between, we got to onboard you immediately. And it's like, just the opportunity to not transplant and copy and paste your life from one place to another and take freedom, and you have like strings attached, car payment, apartment payment, whatever, all these things. You just snip all these lines that are holding you down and you're just like, let me just go be free, like real free. Like, when is the last time that you were fully free to go left, right, up, down, sleep in, stay out late, go to the city, meet these people, say yes to this adventure, say no to this adventure. Oh, there's a cool new city over here that I never heard about. Go there. Like, that's this type of freedom that most people don't ever actually experience is life changing. And it's so much easier than people think it is. But we just, no one, we don't know people that do that. Part one, everybody goes from job to job to job to job. School, maybe they take 1 month off and go to Europe, and then they go, back into a job, and then the corporate, and then they leave and they just climb this corporate ladder. But man, the freedom that you can experience, the freedom that comes with free experience will allow you to step back from your life. And because we're so schedules and routine and habits and all this stuff, it's like, man, just get some separation and just go do something for a long time without knowing where it's going to take you. Really, man, it's like the biggest life hack, and it's so much easier than people think it is.
The one thing that came to mind was like, we live in financial times where, because I'm in the Bitcoin space, I see this, and I see how like inflation goes up. And so people's savings are drained faster. And then maybe that's why they're like, oh, I got to keep working. Like, I need to pay, even if they cut the ties to their car payment or their house or whatever, or they find a opportunity to like do an Airbnb for their house, like, they might get a little bit of anxiety with like, oh, my bank account is draining. and the rate at which inflation's increasing is.
People don't think about that.
I mean, some
people do, but like if you're like, 25 to 35, you're not really considering the fact that if you take like 6 months off, that inflation's gonna like wreck you.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be, because it's not gonna change that much in 6 months.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe you think like that, which being in the finance space and like very aware of it, but I think most people have other kind of BS excuses.
Yeah, maybe insecurities to just get out of those habits and those routines.
Because people don't do it, dude.
Yeah.
How many people do you know that did what I did?
Not many.
I didn't know anybody that went to Kenya. I've never met, like I know maybe one person that's been to Kenya and Tanzania, and I went there and I was like, I don't know anything about this place. But it's crazy that I know like a lot of travelers and a lot of people from a lot of places. And of course, people go to other places, but like it's possible, but we just don't have those people that are showing us that it's possible in our communities. And that's possible in a lot of ways. Like I saw so much. One of the things that was cool through my trip is that I met people who showed me it's possible to do things that I didn't think was possible. Raising a family on the road, not working, living in Nairobi or, wherever, Jordan, Indonesia, like anything. And you meet someone and you're like, dude, I never met anybody like you.
Yeah.
Like that's so freaking cool that you built a boat 10 years ago out of wood and you've lived on this boat for 10 years and you host events and you basically committed your life to this boat, and it's an amazing community and stuff. And like, wow, like that's so dope, dude. You did that. And like, I didn't think that was possible, but it's possible. And we just, once again, it's like this insular thing, obviously internet and like social media and stuff and like blogs, and everybody can create something that it's out there. It's just exposure to it. And then like how many layers of separation? Cause like maybe some people see me and they're like not friends with me or whatever. And they're like, wow, Zach did this crazy thing. I've never met him before, must have been blah, blah, blah. But it's like, when you're close to me, it's like, oh, it's like my homie did this, like I can do, if he did it, I'm not special, it's like other people can do this too.
I think you're special.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
So let's get a little bit into the stories. So I know you created a longer video of meeting some girl that like pointed out your Live a Great Story. Was it on Hajong? You want to spit that story real quick?
Yes, I do. This is
and also, sorry to interrupt. If you want to give context to for anybody that's listening to like what Live a Great Story is, because we haven't gotten into that.
Live a Great Story started from really a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, and the idea that sharing stories with people from around the world, from different walks of life, and getting outside of your bubble makes the world a better place. And that started for me about a decade ago. I bought a one-way ticket and ended up traveling for 7 months. Hostels, couch surfing, hitchhiking, getting lost, wandering back streets, saying hi to strangers, and just listening to people's stories. And that was really exciting to me and really fuels me to hear other people's life. And so somehow out of that 7 months of travel, I came up with this phrase, Live a Great Story. I was like journaling and writing and photoing and videoing and doing lots of creative stuff, constantly like drawing in my notebook and things. And so I drew this phrase, Live a Great Story. Came back from the trip, spray painted Live a Great Story on a wall here in Austin, Texas. People started sharing photos of it on social media. This phrase, Live a Great Story, started spreading and spreading. I made some stickers, I made some shirts, and it just kind of kept spreading and spreading and spreading. And so now, 9 years later, it's like a brand, it's a movement, it's a community, it's products, it's experiences.
I've seen people tattoo themselves.
Dozens of people have tattoos. Lots of people have tattoos. Lots of people have taken it to really cool places. Basically daily people send me stories about their life and their story and things they're going through, things they've overcome, things they're aspiring towards. And it just is this really wild phrase that I really feel just kind of gifted to me from somewhere else to kind of be the shepherd of, and to, maybe lead a movement from the center of the movement, because I'm just as much a part of it as everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, it happens to be mine, but it's also all of ours. And I'm just like, you know, as soon as anybody puts on a Live a Great Story, they're going to have the same experience as me, because I'm not like, oh, I'm the founder of this brand. I'm like, no, this is like a cool thing. And like, what does it mean to you? You know, and like, that's what anybody can do when they wear it. And then, you know, when you wear the shirt, people point to it, especially when it's a big shirt like this. People point to it and they're like, hey, I like that. What is your story? Here's my story. You know, what's things like that. And so it like creates this opportunity for connection and storytelling between strangers, which is kind of the theme of story time, where you meet someone, hey, nice to meet you. Tell me a story about your life. And when you do that, you kind of supersede all this bullshit about where you're from, you know, all this, where'd you go to school, what's your job, all these kind of meaningless things, and you jump into someone's like core being and like an experience from their life. And then most of the time we're like, wow, like that was your experience, that's also my experience, but in like a totally different way. And that's why story time works, and that's why Live a Great Story works. And so really for the last like 9 years, I have a podcast, I've hosted dozens of events, I had a conference, I've taken people on trips, sold tons of merch. There's like 2 million, 3 million stickers out there. They've gone to all corners of the globe basically at this point. And it's still a little baby biz. So growing up, basically want to do it forever and just keep inspiring people in their own journey. Because when someone steps into their story and they say, hey, this is my story, I'm going to make it great. I'm going to define what living means to me. I'm going to define what great means. I'm going to leave a story, verb, noun, adjective, verb, adjective, noun. Then it creates, it helps people see things in a more personal way. And then when they step into their story and they own it, that inspires their people to do the same. And that's what like really Live a Great Story is all about.
And for me, it definitely allows me the opportunity to step out of, like we were just talking about, maybe kind of not getting stuck but just being in the routine. You're just constantly in this kind of, you know, same routine, habits and all this stuff. And then you see Live a Great Story and you're like, am I living a great story? Kind of question what you're doing. And you question, maybe there's, you know, maybe I can, you know, challenge myself more, or what, you know, you kind of get out of that framework, that mental framework, which is really interesting. It did that for me. So anyways, to go back to that.
You know what's weird, before we just jump into this, I had this thought yesterday, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, because I share so much on social media, and I'm like, I like have to share. Like even here, you know, being back home, like I share every day on basically Instagram stories and, you know, posts and stuff. I'm like, dude, my life is a story. Like every day I just see things as a story, and it's like I just constantly find myself / put myself in moments and experiences that I'm like, dude, this is an awesome story. This is a main character story. Like this is the plot, and like if it's good or if it's bad, if it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's like I just see it, and I'm like, dude, that's how I want to live. Like I want to live as if I'm writing my life, and I can do that, and I think everybody can do that. And so I live like that, and then I share it. And so it's like I think, you know, of course social media is weird. Like, am I sharing it altruistically, or is there a motive here? Does it make me feel good when I get all these likes and comments and stuff? Like, I don't know. I'm just like, fuck it. Like, I just have to share this stuff and do it as genuinely as possible, so that maybe it inspires other people to do the same. And so that's why I put myself in all these situations and like really like live day to day. Is like, this is like, yesterday I walked to the corner store in the rain. I was like, I want a yerba mate because I'm going to go dancing tonight, and I want some caffeine, and I'm going to leave my phone at home, and it's pouring rain outside, and I'm going to walk to the corner store and get some drinks and some ice cream. And I did. And I was like, it's freaking cool, man. Like, I'm just walking in the rain. This car drove by me, and there was a puddle, and I just got splashed. And I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, that would happen. Like, give it to me. So anyway, it's like a weird frame that I see the world through. I'm just like, everything is a story, and like I get to manipulate the story too. Like manipulating memories is a thing for me, and so it's like, because nothing like necessarily exists as it is, it's all a perspective, then you can control that perspective. And so I very much actively am controlling that perspective on a daily basis, where like this, I could have been like, fuck, I got splashed by this dick driver. Like, why did he do? I'm like, no, like that's one route I could have taken, but I catch myself and I'm like, and so I'm like constantly diverting my memories and like actively writing these memories so that I can like craft that narrative of what life looks like. Because you can say it's negative, things bad happen to me, you know, like, of course, but it's like, that's not actually what happened. It's like how we perceive it. So it's like, if we can just better perceive stuff then and build a habit around that, then makes for a better experience, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The first thing that comes up, and I've said this to myself because I've changed my story for certain aspects of my life that are difficult and that have caused like reoccurring stress or shame or, you know, negative emotions, and changing that story. And this kind of goes towards the universe is working for you instead of to you. I always just, in the back of my mind, I'm like, make sure you're not manipulating it to a point where it's like you're lying to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like you're changing memories totally, but like that's just, I think, pretty obvious. You can feel that viscerally if you're really manipulating something to an extent that's like, yeah, it definitely happened in a different way. But yeah, I think things are as they are. We have a certain perspective. Our ego formulates, like we go through that experience and we formulate a certain perspective. And you can go back and say like, you know, if you were abused when you were at a certain stage in life, and for the rest of your life, you're like, I'm always anxious around people because of this abuse and I'll never get out of that. I'm always going to be fearful with social stuff or whatever. But then you can get to a point where you're saying that made me stronger, gave me more resilience. And now I can understand myself in many different ways because of that moment and appreciate even more compassionate people. You know what I'm saying? And so that shift of perspective is, I mean, it's a superpower, man. It's
yeah.
magical.
And then it's when you can do it in real time. That's the real superpower. So there's like, obviously there's stuff that, you know, it's a practice. And so it's how to like acknowledge that it's happening and like write in real time. Because yeah, I mean, of course there's are real things that happen and we're not rewriting the memory, the facts of it.
Right.
It's the emotion attached to it. And so I think that's what's one of the other rules I was saying, these like 10 rules or whatever that I learned traveling. And one of them is like, catch yourself before you start spiraling. And so like whether that's like an emotional thought or even a physical thing where you're like, how do I like, if I'm getting off track, how do I course correct faster? Because the longer that I stay off track, the more that I'm going to get off track. And so whether it's being alone, being scared, you know, sometimes I had to like, all right, like it's kind of intense right now. Like, you know, I got to like do something to get this under control, because if I don't, then it's going to get way out of control, you know, whether that's internally or externally. And so catching yourself, and for me, that's like really this, you know, manipulating memories idea. It's an alliteration, so I like the MM. So maybe not manipulating. Is like
even like changing that word, you could say, you know, illuminating.
Yeah.
Illuminating or enlightening that perspective.
Yeah.
Because manipulating might sound more.
Yeah. I like maybe molding. Molding is more of a creation versus manipulating has kind of like a negative connotation. Molding memories is definitely a little bit better. But I think, I mean, and so this also, we'll get to some stories and stuff, but this what was really cool about travel, and this is why I think that it's important to travel in general for everybody, and to like really travel and really get outside your comfort zone and really be free. And it's a practice. And so what happened on this trip is that literally, like, I was in class every day. Like every day I was like taking notes, writing, learning, testing, scientific theory. Like every single day was very much active lessons. And so I was able to really practice a lot of these things at such rapid iteration that I could develop new skills and practices and mindsets and perspectives and abilities and everything so quickly, because like multiple times a day I was in situations to actively practice, review the practice, and then adopt new ways of tackling that the next time, which was literally an hour later or 24 hours later or a week later. And so there was times where I went from like city to city to city, where I like learned a lesson in this city, applied it in the next city, learned another lesson, applied it in the next city. And then by the fourth city, I was like crushing on something that I was like really struggling with before. And that happened like literally every single day. Like I said, I was in class, like learning so much. So like this practice of like catching yourself where you're off track, or smiling and saying hi to strangers, or bookending adventures, like all these things that we talked about. I was like, okay, cool. This is truth. I believe this. I practice it, or I learned it. Let me practice this as much as possible. And so for like 9 months straight, it's just like, think about, you know, it's like the practicing the one kick 10,000 times. I was just like practicing my kicks literally nonstop all day, every day. And so now being back in Austin, which is really wild, when I'm talking to people, and there's been lots of moments where I'm like in a conversation with someone, I'm acting in a way that I'm like, I can see the lesson just like being delivered through me. Like I've been here so many times, and like, it's like a perfect delivery of like perfect showing up. It's a perfect practice. It's the result. It's the, you know, finality of something that I like worked really hard to do. And then maybe it's like the combination of a lot of those together, so that like I just, when I'm like showing up here in Austin and like hugging someone, meeting someone, asking someone questions, I'm just like, wow, like I can feel so different because I've like literally have worked on this, you know, for 9 months straight.
And that's just like, you feel so different through like the way that you communicate with people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a confidence thing. It's a trust in myself. It's a experience. It's a practice. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, for example, like I went dancing last night, and I posted this thing this morning of me dancing, and I was like, a couple of years ago, I couldn't dance. I didn't like dancing. I was self-conscious. I didn't, you know, and like over the last 3 years, and really probably the last 18 months, I would say, I've went from like being, let's say, like a shy, self-conscious, you know, unconfident dancer to like, dude, I'm front row. You can't hang with me, you know? Yeah. And especially this is like in one environment. So this is like, let's say like electronic music. Like I was like front row in Albania with all my like traveler friends dancing at the festival. Budapest, same thing, you know, come back last night, dancing front row at the, you know, venue. But then 2 nights ago, I was at salsa, and I don't have the skill set to dance. And so I'm like, I know I can, but I don't have the abilities. But I like, that's why I was at salsa, because I was like, I want to learn how to do salsa. Yeah. And so like 6 months from now, after doing salsa every day, every week for 6 months straight, I'm going to be a badass salsa dancer, and I'll have that same feeling, you know, there. So there's like a little bit of skill set involved, but it's really, like I said, the practice of applying these things so quickly. And it's just really not possible to in my opinion, in my experience, like the extent that I learned all of this stuff, it's not possible to do that in your own town, in your own city, with your own schedule. And like, so you have to leave, and you have to leave for a while, and you have to leave with freedom to be able to do that. And just imagine what, you know, all like maybe some of your struggles, some of your weaknesses, some of the things you're working on. Imagine just like I said, going to class for that for like even just like 2 or 3 months. And like you just go to class for like, if you practice the language every day for 3 months, how good would you be? Imagine all the shit that you're dealing with in your life, and you just went out into the world and practiced it every day for 3 months, and you came back. Like, how much better would you be at your work, with your family, with your like significant other, with your health, with all these things? Like, dude, like it's like a level up boost. It's like, and then you come back and you're like a superpower.
Yeah, it's embodied within you. That's cool, man. So let's get into that's micro story.
Yeah. So this is a really cool one. This is one of the more fortuitous, small world serendipity stories. I was in Ha Giang Loop, which is a motorcycle scooter trip through the mountains of North Vietnam. Absolutely incredible. One of the best experiences ever. Highly recommend it to anybody. You basically are riding through these insane mountains in the border of China and Vietnam, and it's really social and people are riding together and you're in groups. I did it alone, which most people don't do, and they don't really allow it. Somehow I was able to like make it happen, of course. So I was cruising alone, and on the third day, this is also the time that I was like breaking up with my girlfriend. So it was like really tense. We were traveling together. She went one way, I went the other way to Ha Giang. So we had like physical distance for the first time in like about 2 months or more, because in Austin we were together all the time. And so I was in the mountains, and it was on the third day. I woke up super early. I went on a ride by myself. I came back, was hanging with my friends, left, rode by myself. It's like rainy and cloudy and kind of gross. And I had like a full poncho, like pants, jacket, poncho on, because you're like getting mud splashed everywhere, and it was just awesome. Like riding in the rain, I got to stop and like look at views, and almost crashed because it was like this crazy boulders, like they're building the road. So like you're like riding and everybody else crashed, and I like when you like hit something and you're like your hands go like this on a motorcycle and you kind of pop up, and I had to like save it, but I didn't crash it. I was like, hell yeah, I didn't crash. Like I'm a badass, and I'm watching everybody else crash. And then they're all like waiting there, and I'm like by myself. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go by myself. So I freaking took off, and it was just like this amazing. I had like multiple spiritual moments up in the mountain, just like insane views. Like it's this, and then had cleared out all the smog and haze because it's really cloudy during this time of year in Southeast Asia because they're burning all the rice fields. So it's just like really bad weather and like bad air pollution and air quality and haze everywhere and brown and not so luscious. But it had rained this morning, and so it was like it had cleared out all the smog, so you could actually see super far. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I was coming out of this gas station, and a group of like 10 or 15 other bikers drove by. And I pulled out, and I was kind of riding with them for a second. And this girl rides up beside me, and she's like, "Yo, nice hoodie." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And I had like my Live a Great Story hoodie on, and we're just like riding next to each other, like talking like this, and just really quick for like a couple minutes. Where are you from? What do you know to? How's the trip? Like yelling at each other, basically like riding. And then we're riding, and then this guy right in front of us like skids out on his scooter and like lays his scooter down. So like that group has to stop, and I was like, "See ya," and like went off back by myself.
Yeah.
So it was just really cool. And then at the end of this day, on day 3, Ha Giang, you're almost at the final part, but there's like right before the final night stay, you pull up to this cafe that's basically overlooking this valley and just all these mountains, and they look like teeth. They're like really sharp. So it's like triangle, 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 triangle. And it's like this like, valley, like circular, and it's just amazing. And everything was green, and there's a village down there. And it's like, and I just, parked my bike and got off, and I'm just walking up there like, this is so wild. I am so grateful for this. I'm breaking up with my girlfriend. Thank you for this view. Because on that ride earlier in the day, I was just like, I had this feeling of like so much excitement and alignment and energy, and so much of that was a result of me being alone and kind of taking this adventure and going down my path. And so I was like, okay, this is that route, and I'm like, it's so fueling to me, and it's just like pouring gasoline on my soul. And then there's the other way. And I was like, I can't go the other way.
Yeah.
Like, not in good conscience can I deny myself this feeling and forsake this for that. And so I had a moment where I'm like, it's done. So all this happened, and then at the top of the mountain, I'm like looking and just, you know, like shaking my head and probably just saying "wow" like a million times. And I see the girl, and she's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "What up?" She's like, "Yeah, live a great story." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And she had fallen, so she was like covered in mud.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Yeah, I love Live a Great Story." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "I saw a Live a Great Story sticker in Budapest 3 years ago." And she pulls out her phone, scrolls all the way back to 2019, finds this
Wow.
Live a Great Story photo. And it's just like a photo of the sticker. It's just like nothing else,
Yeah.
like on the wood. And she's like, "Yeah, I saw this in a ruin bar in Budapest in 2019, and I loved it. And I took a photo of it. I think about it all the time."
Wow.
And I'm just like, "No way, like this is crazy." So it's like this like insane day, insane downloads and like illumination of the future. And
You told her too, right?
and I'm like, "Yeah, like yeah." I'm like, "This is my business." And of course she freaked out, and you know, and I got a really cool video of her telling the story and showing the photo and everything. And yeah, her name was Brittany, and she was super funny, and she was telling everybody that she was with like the story and showing them the photo. I gave her some stickers, and she ended up getting a Live a Great Story tattoo.
No way.
Yeah, so
That's
right,
so
actually
cool.
same place that I do, maybe on the other arm.
Yeah.
It's just a line. This is Live a Great Story.
Wow.
And I was like, this is so insane that I'm from Texas, you're from Australia, you were in Budapest, saw a sticker, we're in Vietnam. What a small world.
Yeah.
And we still keep in touch. She's super cool. And one of the like most small world serendipitous like alignment stories.
Yeah,
Like it was
man.
almost like, yeah, Zach, like this is your path. Like
Yeah.
this is a sign. Like out of all the signs, this is a sign. Like keep doing what you're doing.
That's killer, man. I mean, that's like in the beginning of your journey too, in a very pivotal moment and making different decisions and like just, yeah, the serendipity of meeting her. Oh man, that is so wild. That's so cool. Damn, that's so crazy. So I want to, be mindful of your time. We still have some time left, and I want to hear more stories. Like, Vietnam is just one of how many? 20?
14.
14? Okay. So, anything you feel called to share. And like, yeah, just certain trips, certain cities, certain cultures or lessons that you learned. Would love to hear them. And I know that if people follow you, you can get a glimpse of it. But, anything that you feel really compelled to like share and dive into, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, it's do you have anything that you wrote in your little journal that you can like give me a jumping off point? Because that's just like, I'm like, okay, maybe Laos or maybe Kuala Lumpur or maybe, Albania or even Slovenia and Austria and Kenya and Tanzania.
Yeah.
Like, which city and there's like so many things. And like,
I'd like to hear, because it seems like, I think it's pronounced Petra, Jordan. And that's where one of the 7 wonders of the world is located. So many cool pictures that you posted. That seems to be like a highlight, one of your favorites.
Facts.
So I would love to hear more about that.
Jordan's sick, man. And it's like, I feel like I'm overhyping it because like everybody's like, what's your favorite place? Jordan. And they're like, and so I tell everybody about Jordan, and I was going to host a trip there next year, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen now just because of
The war,
regional tension. But
Yeah.
honestly, I still think like, I mean, I might just go back just to be like, dude, I have a belief that like people are good, and like just because the news says something doesn't mean it's usually blown out of perspective. And so like, it was such a cool place, and if I can get even just a couple people to go, then it's not like it's gonna be like a war torn place,
Mhm.
It's like, and if it is, then the whole plate, like the whole world is gonna be in a big problem. So like
Yeah.
we have bigger problems if we can't go
Yeah.
to Jordan. It's just kind of convincing people who have like maybe never gone to another country, or aren't, they're fearful of some like, the Middle East or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not like trying to like put in hours of like trying to convince people to come. Like, no, I'm like, yo, I'm going. You want to come with me? Like, let's go type thing. But Jordan is definitely like one of my highlights. And it's funny because it started off really hard. So I got to Jordan and I don't plan anything. I just show up places and kind of wing it. And Jordan, I had an in date because I was coming to Egypt to meet my buddy who was coming. Only guy that met me on the trip was coming to Egypt. So I had a final hard stop on leaving Jordan. So I think I had 12 days in Jordan. And I get there and I'm like trying to find people at the hostel to go on this adventure with me or like get a ride. I don't want to take a bus. I wanted to go with homies, right? Like that's the idea. And usually I can round up people and that's kind of my superpowers, rallying people. And it just didn't happen in Jordan. So like the hostel, for whatever reason, also the way that the country is and how people travel there, they're not like slow traveling usually. So it's like they fly in and they're like renting a car and they're going here, and then they leave, And so I'm pretty sure it was 4 nights. So it was a long time that I was stuck in Amman. And everybody's like, Amman's not that cool. It's not that cool of a city. Like you can leave. And like, that's usually what people say when they're boring travelers and they just want to see stuff and leave and check stuff off.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, yeah, like a ton of people live in Amman. Like it's like a big ass city. Same with like Bangkok or, Nairobi or, some of these other places. I'm like, there's a lot to do in these places. And they're also really cool cities. And so I ended up getting a good insight and experience in Amman because I was there forever, but I was like stuck there. I was like, I want to leave, and I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave.
Why again?
I couldn't find anybody. So I was like stuck in this hostel. Like, hey, what's up, man? Where are you going? Oh, we're going to here. I'm like, fuck, I can't go that route. Like that doesn't work for me. And they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go like sleep at a hotel in the Dead Sea. You can come to the Dead Sea, but we're staying there. I'm like, well, maybe I can come, but then I have to like find a hitchhike out of there because I don't want to stay at a hotel, so I can't do that. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to Wadi Rum first, and then we're going to go to Petra. I'm like, well, I don't want to go to Wadi Rum first. I want to go to Petra first. And so like it just didn't work and I just kept not finding people. And so I'm just like stuck at this hostel forever, like literally forever, like days and days. And I'm just like walking around. And so it's funny because this whole trip in one of my best countries started off really badly. But then once it got rolling, it started rolling and it was so cool. I caught a ride with these 2 dudes and we went to the Dead Sea, and the Dead Sea was, well, first of all, we went to, we left Amman to go to, it's called Wadi Mujib. And so it's a canyon. It's like a slot canyon that runs into the Dead Sea. And so it's like a river. And so you basically like hike this river for about 2 or 3 hours, like waist deep, Grand Canyon, like Zion style hiking through this amazing thing into the waterfall. You can jump off the waterfall and it looks amazing. And we just slept in like a little bit too late, left a little bit too late. And by the time we got there, it was like sold out. And I was like, and we were all like so bummed because we went there and like, it's just not possible to go. And so that's why I want to go back and like do it because it's like looks really cool. It's all like luscious and green, inside of this like rocky red rock canyon. And, you're like wading through water and, it's just like a really cool adventure. A lot of, the reviews and stuff, people are like, this is one of the coolest things we did in Jordan. So I'm like, dang it, we didn't get to do that. And it's right across from the Dead Sea. And so, but then turns out, the Dead Sea, you basically have to buy day passes or stay at a hotel to go to the Dead Sea on the Jordan side. So we're like, and it cost like $60 or something for us to get into a day pass at this hotel. And they're like these massive, like huge resort style things on the Dead Sea. And so we buy the tickets and we go inside and the Dead Sea is closed. There's a lifeguard and he's like, can't swim.
Close the sea?
Close the sea. I'm like, what? You're fucking kidding me. And like, we just paid all this money like to come in here and swim in the Dead Sea and you're not going to let us in. And I was like, no, like, stop me. So we got in, the homie's like blowing his whistle and I'm like, no, bro, like I'm getting in the water. And yeah, like it was just too windy and there's like waves and stuff. And so they like closed the Dead Sea and like it was just so outrageous and I was so mad. And so that was like a really funny thing that happened. And so we're all like swimming and the dude just like mad at us. But I'm like, what are you gonna do, bro? Like, and then I flew my drone and drones aren't allowed in Jordan. I flew my drone from that same hotel and then security guards came and got us and kicked us out. Like I flew it, I took it off, like looked around, you know, and I was like, I know I can't do this. Flew it, and then and like almost instantly, two guards are like, "What's up with your drone?"
Shit.
I'm like, I don't know, and they're like, "Yeah, you got to get out of here." So luckily, they like didn't call the cops or anything. But that footage is pretty cool. So yeah, man. So anyway, this is like you have Amman, and then you have Wadi Mujib, you have the Dead Sea, you have Petra, you have Wadi Rum, and then you have Aqaba, which we didn't go to, but it's like down on the Red Sea. And so it has all of this really amazing stuff you can see that you can't see anywhere else. There's like no other Petra in the world. Maybe in Saudi Arabia, there's something similar, but like it's like the only place in the world that has this. The Dead Sea is the only place in the world. You can go to Israel, but same thing. It's like the same place. Wadi Rum, there's like I said, maybe places in some other, like maybe Oman, like, but it's not Wadi Rum, right? It's not the same. And so what's really amazing about Jordan, which is why I want to take people back and go together and like not like have this adventure together because you can see it all pretty quickly. So within 7 to 10 days or so, you can see basically a majority of Jordan and see the city, the history, 2,000, 3,000-year-old city with, Arabic, Roman influence. And then you can see the Dead Sea. You can see some nature stuff. Then you can go to Petra and hike around Petra for 2 days and see, all the stuff there. That's where I met my friend who's a Bedouin who lives in the park and had like an amazing time with him and his people and went to their village and his, had just like a really cool time there. And then you can go to Wadi Rum and sleep underneath the stars in the desert and be in like a place that looks like Mars / Dune. It's just such a cool place. It's really safe. They are very welcoming to travelers and tourists. About like 30 years ago, they had some terrorist bombs and they just like overhauled the entire country and made it really safe. So there's like super good security. Everybody speaks really good English. They just love people. They're like really welcoming. Some dude did like a drive-by welcome to Jordan. Like he was just driving down the street, welcome to Jordan, like out the window, didn't even stop, didn't even like, just like, so people are really nice there. They, super friendly. And then the, really like we were talking about in the sauna, like the Bedouin culture and being a part of these people who have been part of the, or like, interacting with people who have been part of the land for like 3,000 years or more, like their like ancestors have been here since the beginning of time. Yeah. You're like, you can feel it, and you talk to them and I had some really cool experiences with that because I made friends with this one dude and we ended up meeting up a couple of different times to like do different stuff, and then I was with him and then he's like, yo, come meet my friends and my brothers, and then we're like hanging out with his brothers, and then he's like, I want to take you to my village. So we go to the village and meet more brothers and we're just like chilling. And it was really cool because they kind of like embraced me in a very special way. Because like, they're not doing this with everybody for sure. So they like people pay them, they, take photos of them and they hang out and stuff. But I had a very unique experience, and for sure, like this is not a normal thing for, a gringo to be hanging out with, Bedouins in their city, like eating with your hands around them. And so it's really cool and just felt like a really good connection with this one dude specifically. And he, the next day I was with these two girls that I met. They were Serbian and we were just like kind of chopping it up, and they were like wanting to take pictures in front of Petra. So Petra's like, Petra's like a big area that's like it's an old city. So it's like 65 square kilometers. Yeah. So it's like a big city. You can hike around it all day. There's like tons of hikes. You're going up to like a couple thousand feet down around. And then what the main thing is called the Treasury. So it's like this thing that's carved out of the wall.
That's the seventh wonder of the world.
Yeah,
right?
it's the seventh
Okay.
wonder. There's another
One,
one on
yeah.
the backside of it. It's called the monastery. Same idea, carved out of another wall. So like there's 2 of those, and then there's also like 5 different. I think they're called temples or something, but there's 5 more rooms like that carved out of the wall. So like this whole area from the Nabateans in like the early 2000 or like AB to whatever BC,
Yeah.
like that transition from like 100 BC to like 200 AD,
Okay.
around the Roman times. Like this is when this city was thriving, and so there's like they just like had all this money. It's kind of this Silk Road stop where they were like the middle ground between Europe and the Middle East and North Africa, all the way from Asia. So there's like this like hub, and these desert people became really wealthy.
Mhm.
So that's what Petra is. And so
That guy that you had a connection with.
yeah, I met him because in front of the treasury, they're like, hey, you want to come take a photo from up above? And you have to pay 5 Jordanian dollars to go up there. And so these guys' job basically is just like get people to go up there. They take photos of you and you pay them and then you leave, right?
Yeah.
And so I was with these girls and I had already been up there, and these 2, cute Serbian girls. And I'm like, come on, let's go up there. Like, it's $5. Like, it's worth it. It's gonna be a cool photo. Like, it's worth it. It's worth it. And they're like, I don't know. I don't want to pay. And so I'm just like, yo, it's worth it. And this guy, and so we're talking with a guy who's not my friend, but like another friend. And maybe he knew that I knew him. Like, they're all cousins and stuff, so they don't know each other. I'm like, yo, where's Telly? And they're like, I don't know. He's somewhere else. And so the guy like looks me in the eyes and he goes, all right, bro, you don't have to pay. You can go up there for free. And it was the craziest thing because like he like looked into my soul and I was like, you're good. Like,
Wow.
you get a pass. And I was like, heard, like, appreciate you. And we start walking and the girls, are like, that was cool. I'm like, yeah, that was cool. And then so we have to go up and you have to climb up. And then there's like another guy who's a guard and he's like, all right, you have to pay. And I'm like, no. And like, homie said we don't have to pay. And he's like, no, like you have to pay. And I was like, no, homie said we don't have to pay. Like, ask him. So the dude like calls out across, like yells like across the thing.
Yeah.
And the dude down there is like, he's good. Like, let him through.
Yeah.
And the guy like looks at me and he goes, yo, this never happens. Like, go for it. And I was like, dude, this is wild. Like, wild connection, like 2 dudes gave me the pass to come up and take these girls up there. So we go up there, take photos, all this stuff. And, like gave the homie some daps on the way out and like no money was exchanged. And so it was just like a really cool thing, like on top of having, chill with these dudes and like met their families and all this stuff. And like, I was like the last one in the park watching sunset with this dude like, from the place that he took me that like most people don't go to. And so it was just like this overall really cool experience. And so, and I was just like, I mean, this is one of those things where I just felt the alignment, I just felt like true, just like you're doing it, Zach. Like this is where you're supposed to be. You're authentic, you're real, you show up, no BS, and people know it. And so, and I felt that energy and it was really cool. And then in Egypt, like a couple countries later, I was telling someone about right after this. Yeah. Cause I went from Jordan to Egypt. I was telling a guy from Jordan and he grew up there, but he's not Bedouin. He's from actually like he's an ancient Jordanian, which is different than Bedouin. So he's like, next time you come back, come to my city and I'll show you around. And his family's like business owners there and they're like real successful and stuff. And so, but he's like, you know why that happened, right? Actually I was telling him the story and he like, he like looks once again, like through me, like into me. And I was like, you know why that happened, right? You know why they like you? And I was like, and he was like, bravery. I was like, whoa. Like, it was like it like hit.
Wow.
And he's like, these guys, that's who they are at their core. This like ancient tribe, these Bedouins, they are brave. And that's like part of their, ethos for the beginning of time. And they can sense that in people.
Wow.
And he's like, they saw that in you. Like I got chills thinking about it. And it was fucking crazy because I felt it. And then for someone like I felt it, couldn't put the words to it.
Yeah.
But then this other guy to like basically third person, like see me and hear, like, know me, and we connected. And then him to tell me that like through his Jordanian lens.
Yeah.
And like, I was just like,
wow,
bro, like lightning strike, like you're on track moment.
Yeah. Dick, yeah, that was going to be the follow-up question. It's like, what do you think happened within him, that gentleman that was like, he looked at you into your soul and was like, no, you're good. And that doesn't typically happen. That's cool to get like confirmation afterwards.
Yeah. And like, that's the energy. Like, I think that's like that feeling that I had in that moment. And like a lot of these other moments where I just am like, it's risky, or I'm taking a risk, or I'm uncertain of what's going to happen. I have this like foundational confidence that was, has for sure been a lifelong, like 10 years of failing in entrepreneurship and like, sports and, like
life.
So much life stuff, and like constantly like writing the story and learning and, pushing my comfort zone and all of this. And then to be able to like, show up in that moment with the guy looking at me, and then, that's the same kind of confidence or like the same feeling I have now when I'm talking to people, where I'm just like, it's like, I'm just standing there and listening to someone and like engaging with someone, and they're like asking me questions. Like even in the sauna today when we were talking, and like the whole room was like listening, and it was just me and you talking. Like that kind of energy of people just being like,
they recognize it.
They recognize it, and it's like, and it's not, and it's just cool because it's like, I don't think of myself like that cool.
It's not like an inflation of ego.
No, it's not at all. But it's just like real. It's like, I don't like, you can't shake this, like I'm on the dance floor. Like you can't touch it. It's like nothing except myself is gonna like be able to chip that away. And so, once again, going back to like how this happened, so much of it happened because of solo traveling and going into places and practicing this stuff like over and over and over and over again. And, definitely wouldn't be who I am now without all these like travel experiences. Here on this trip, 10 years ago on my other trip, and like lots of other trips in between, where I've been able to like practice this. And I think that's just like why I'm like, anybody can do it, man. Just like buy the freaking ticket and go, and it works out. It's not as hard as you think it is. And it's going to like, it's literally like a cheat button.
It may not be hard as you may think it is, because you have that bravery.
No, dude, it's not. I talk to people. I talk to other people, and like a lot of other people, Americans, like other Europeans, whatever. And I'm like, they're like, a lot of people say this. They're like, yeah, like my friends are so scared, or like I was scared, and then I showed up and it just works out. You know? And it's like, it is a fear. I think of this like shadow analogy. When you like see the shadow, you're like, oh my God, it's so scary. And then they're like flashing the light on this like little like creature that's like, you're like, it's not that scary, right? Like that's how it is. And so many people just see the shadow, and then the news tells you about the shadow, and your parents tell you about the shadow, and your job tells you about the shadow, and everybody's like, don't go there because it's scary and it's hard. And you're like, oh my God, this shadow's so scary. And then you're like, whatever, let me just try it. And you go, and you're like, dude, this is so easy. Like, and it's like, it's not just me. A lot of people like anecdotally will share this. And so that's why it's like my mission, just like buy the freaking ticket, like buy the ticket, go. Don't go to Rome. Don't go to like, some of these other places. Like go somewhere far out, or like medium far out, and just, try it and see and take that first step, because then the subsequent like 10 steps are so much easier than I think they are. And then those subsequent 10 steps take you so much in such a direction you'll never know. And it's like, that's why travel is amazing. Like real travel, not taking a vacation. Americans just take vacation. Like, oh, cool, I got 2 weeks. I'm gonna go like chill on the beach in Mexico. It's not travel, like real travel is like doing stuff you can't do in your hometown out in the world. And if you do that, like it's literally the easiest cheat button. Like you're gonna spend $5,000 on a course from some life coach, just go to buy a ticket for $2,000, and like it's so much better than you having a coach who's like telling you what to do. Like that's so lame. Like it's so much easier, so much better, so many better stories. And like, all right, we're gonna hop on Zoom and like talk about your feelings. Like fuck off, dude. Go to the desert.
Oh shit. That's something that I've been learning. I haven't traveled as much as you. Not nearly, not even close. But I have been doing these different, you know, I know there's like this circulating um, within the Austin culture of spirituality, like ayahuasca seems to be like the trending thing to do, right? And I do believe that I've entered a container that feels pure and genuine, and it doesn't matter who is like conducting and facilitating everything. And dude, immersing into these really challenging moments of taking the medicine and like what you're experiencing like viscerally, temescals, conversations that are extremely vulnerable and people hearing you, and you just develop this immense amount of self-respect and love. And it's not to say that everything goes away, like your shadows or your, maybe emotional cycles that you have, but you do feel a different energy. And I like how you I did feel in the sauna too, like when we were talking, like you could just tell people were like just listening, just like listening. And it's not to say we're bloating our ego or anything like that and you want tons of attention. It's just like you can feel like you have that self-respect and others have that respect to you as well because you're emanating that energy in a certain way. And yeah, dude, it's I'm really glad you shared that Jordan story. We have a little bit of more time and I have a couple things in here. I'm wondering which one I'm going to choose. Yeah, so let's see. I would like to, well, there's a quote that you have when you turn 33. People will tell me I seem younger than I am. What am my superpower? Well, there might be even a longer one. Hold on one second. Oh, the birthday post was trying to grow up a little, but trying a lot to not grow old. Focusing more on what's ahead than what's behind. Focusing the most on the now. I don't know why I thought that was really cool. Because like when you're traveling, it's extremely, I almost think it's not impossible, but it's like extremely difficult to not focus on the past and what's ahead. Because you got a plan, right? Like when you're winging it, you got a plan in a certain way. And then you learn, like you were saying, you had lessons learned from each city and you were taking them with you. So you are going back into the past, but then you're also focusing on the now. I just loved that quote. That was super cool. And like the picture of you was like, I mean, your style of cinematography in the picture and like bringing back like the 90s feel. I fucking love that. And it was just cool. I thought it was something that I was reflecting on and just peering into being present. And even when you're in those cultures and environments, like trying to remain present, learning from your past and trying to instill what you've learned into the future, but just keep moving forward with that bravery and with the lessons that you've learned. And
it's really cool because a lot of people in other places don't focus on the future or the past. So I found myself in situations where it's just like, you're just now, you're just talking, you're hanging out. And they're just going back to like the community thing a lot. Like, I didn't get to experience this a lot in so many different places. It's really places that speak English, right? So like my Egyptian friends spoke good English.
Mm-hmm.
Kenyan people spoke pretty good English. In Asia, not so much, right? Maybe in Indonesia they did, but like I wasn't able to drop in as much, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
different reasons. So in the future, and like definitely towards the end of this trip, probably situationally because people spoke more English in East Africa and the Middle East, was able to hang out and just chill with people who are, and they just don't, they're just talking about life now. And it's not like, it's not hypothetical. So a lot of people don't have these theories. And this is something I have kind of an issue with. Like my dad reads so many books and like he's always like quoting stuff and it's always like theory. And I think it's also a problem I have with our kind of community of stuff where you're talking about ideas and you're talking about, you know, stuff that's kind of lofty. And I read this in a book or I, you know, watched this documentary or like, and it's all these things that float up here. And then, but like, how do you bring that down to like, well, what are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing? And and talking about life. What did you experience? How are you dealing with this? What are you, you know, going through? What are your next steps like in the very near future? You know, what are your struggles? What did you do yesterday? Things like this that are more interesting to me rather than talking about theories and stuff.
Yeah.
And theories float. And then that means because they're kind of high level, then they don't necessarily have the now. They kind of can float forward and backwards in time. So you can apply that stuff to, you know, the goal planning and the future and, you know, your timeline and stuff or like, oh yeah, this happened in the past. But they're not like so tangible. And so I don't really like those conversations are fun for a while to me, but they get a little bit boring. And so like so when people that are just like book smarty type, like this is how, like, I mean, my dad's super smart and like really wise, but the conversations, I'm always like, well, what are you doing about it? You know? And so anyway, in a lot of these places, you're not talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
You're talking, because you're not like referencing this podcast that you listen to or like this. It's like, no, man, like, what are you doing? Like there was this really funny, hilarious moment where me and my friends in Egypt were going to a club and we're driving 2 scooters. So there's like 2 people on each scooters and they're like best friends for their whole lives basically. Right. And these are the 3 guys that I like spent the most time with. And we drove like literally like 25 minutes or something, 30 minutes across the city. And they're just having a full ass conversation. Like they're just sitting in their kitchen like table.
Yeah.
And we're weaving through traffic and they're just like, blah, 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 blah. Left turn, highway, back streets, like bumpy road. And they're just like literally talking to each other. I'm like, first of all, what are y'all talking about? Like, I don't understand. It's all in Arabic. But I'm like, and I'm just laughing so hard. I have a video of it where they're just,
I saw it. Yeah.
Weaving in and out of traffic. And I'm like, this is so funny. And that's what they do is they just sit around and like same thing happened in Tanzania with the guys that climbed Kilimanjaro with. I went to their city, their village called Kahe. And every night at like 7 or 8 o'clock, they just pull up chairs in this one corner of this dirt road next to this dirt house. And they just sit there and talk. And I'm like, for, you know, I don't understand what they're talking about, which is often the case. It's just me being like a gringo, just sitting there, like looking at stuff, like listening. And every once in a while, they'll like throw me a bone and then I go back to conversation. So it's like a lot of times me just chilling by myself, you know, like I don't have data. So I'm just like not on my phone, not doing anything except for like trying to understand like body language. And sometimes you can pick it up and like get stuff. But I'm like, you know, they're just talking, they're just hanging out, talking about stuff that's happening in their life. Maybe it's coming up, maybe there's like some future things, but it's not like, it's not so lofty and things. And so anyway, that's the thing is like the future, the behind, like, yeah, those are important, right?
Yeah.
But like, if I just stay aligned and make really good decisions in the now and listen to my intuition and have good, you know, come from a place of love, move towards love and ask good questions and stuff, then that will take me where I need to go. I don't know where I need to go. It's not more money. It's not a bigger house. It's not like this trip or this, you know, relationship, or I have to plan for all the, like, because I don't know how I got to where I am now. Like I could have never planned this. So like, how do I know that I'm going to plan the future? Right. And like, I kind of take this approach. Like, I don't need to really make any sort of plan personally, because if I just keep doing it, business plans are different than personal plans. But, so yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things about that was really cool. And that's why, and also like the community side is you're just like learning about everybody's life, like every day. You're just like sitting around talking and just like, there's no objective. You don't plan it. It's not like this is like on a calendar thing. You can like put this on a date, like 3 weeks from now, we're going to grab coffee. You know, it's like you just are chilling with your people like every single day. And so, yeah, I think that's like the future plan. And then it's something I do think about a lot, especially with like community here in Austin. It's like,
just shoot the shit.
just shoot the shit, man. Just
Yeah,
like
man.
sit around and talk about stuff. And like,
Yeah, I used to do that as a kid. I just love being around a fire and just, there's no agenda. It's just being there with those people, just talking, and whatever comes up, comes up.
yeah.
You know?
Technology is a big part of this because like as soon as like a lot of these people don't have smartphones. So it's like that temptation to be on your phone and scrolling while you're sitting with your friends isn't there. So they all have these like dumb phones that have like black screens basically. And they just like, you know, are like T9 texting. And so they just don't have phones in a lot of these places. And even if they do, it's not the same. You can see it start creeping in. But yeah, just sitting around without the temptation of having your phone and pulling it out and, you know, whatever is also a big suck on that potential energy of sitting around a fire, you know, a living room or whatever.
It's really impressive that you're able to create so much content and still remain present and have that way of being when you're in these different cities, just not planning too much. It's hard to do because this thing is a hypnotizing machine sometimes.
Well, what's cool is I don't have data.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
so I have the phone and I shoot stuff, but
and
it's not like I'm actively posting. So that's why I get home at night and like post like 5 stories and then go to sleep. And so it's not like, so that is really cool in that way that it's like I'm just forced to not be connected.
Right.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
And very rarely did I get in, like maybe twice in 9 months or something, did I get into a situation where like, dang, I really could use a phone right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really possible to be off your phone and traveling. And I was really trying to replicate that here, but it's really not possible. So yeah, that's a big piece of it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I would love to conclude with you providing how people can find you, and I can link it in the show notes. It could be your personal profile or Live a Great Story, whatever.
Yeah, so live a great story everywhere. liveagreatstory.com, Instagram, hashtag anywhere Live a Great Story. I am the only Live a Great Story. It's trademarked, copyrighted, all the stuff. Except for this one dude that somehow got a Live a Great Story LLC here in Texas. And that's like a very real thing. I told my lawyer and he's like, I've never seen this happen in like 38 years of practicing law or something. And so this dude has a Live a Great Story LLC, and then he like went bankrupt, and so all these creditors are like going after him, and they keep confusing me and him. And it hasn't like affected me at all yet, but it's like a very weird thing where I'm like, yo, Bruce Roth from Dallas, Texas, like, why does your mail keep showing up at my house? And I called him one time and because my dad was like, yo, all this like stuff keeps showing up for this Bruce Roth guy, and it says Live a Great Story LLC. Like, what's going on? And I just put it off for years and years and years. And I finally looked it up, and he has it, and his number was online, and I just called him. I'm like, what the hell, bro? And he like dissolved the LLC, but like, I don't know, this has all just started happening. So anyway, besides that guy, I'm the only Live a Great Story in the world.
Zach, not Bruce. This is Zach, not Bruce.
Yes. And yeah, my personal Instagram where I've been sharing a lot of stuff is Common Vandal and commonvandal.com. And
really? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't really been doing too much with that, but
what does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So Live a Great Story, you know, started because I spray painted Live a Great Story on a wall here in Austin, Texas. Yeah. And so that same wall that I originally spray painted is still there. And there's the Live a Great Story mural underneath Mopac on the hike and bike trail, Lady Bird Lake. And so it's been there forever. And there's been a couple of newspaper, you know, magazine features on it. And one year I had a really big feature in the Austin American Statesman, which is like the Austin newspaper. I had like a snippet at the top, front page, and like a full sheet. Wow. Like it was like 2 or 3 pages, photos and everything. And then like about 3 weeks later, my dad happened to pick up the paper and like happened to flip to the editorial. And there had some guy, what's his name? Russell something. Russell wrote in to the editorial and is like, blah 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 blah. Like the Live a Great Story thing is like a trash, and he's like, I can't believe, and so his quote was like, I can't believe you wrote a glowing article about a common vandal. And I was like, common vandal, it's dope. And I started telling people this, and they're like, dude, that's like such a sick name, and like that's got to be your like rap name or like your first CD. And so I was like, and so many people were like, common vandal, it's so sick.
Yeah.
And so I just like scooped the handle on the website and everything. Yeah. And so that's where common vandal comes from.
That's dope. That's so funny.
I'll send you the newspaper clipping because I still have like a shot of it. It's like, I think his name was Russell Harvey or something like that. But yeah, I was like, thanks for the
ideas.
Yeah, thanks for the nickname, bro.
All right, brother. Well, I'll link all that in the show notes. And I'm glad you were able to come on before you embark on a new journey. And I can't wait to just see where you go next and the lessons that you learn. And seriously, people I see in the comments too, it's like people learn more about even themselves, which is kind of a beautiful thing, like, and I'm sure, I mean, at least for me, like when I'm doing all this stuff, that's something that I wouldn't think I'm doing, like I'm helping others maybe, reevaluate or have a different perspective and reflect on themselves. But like, that's what it's doing for me. And I think that's beautiful. So I look forward to your adventures in the future, man.
Yeah. I think you probably get this too, or this probably happens that you don't realize that happens with me is I just share stuff and put things out, and you have tons of ghost people that don't ever like, don't ever comment, don't ever do anything, but they're just, they see it all. Yeah. And, when I got back, I've had a couple of really impactful in-person interactions where people that I didn't have any idea were following or engaging or liking stuff, be like telling me my stories back to me. They're like, dude, you remember that one time you went to this one place and did that one thing? And I'm like, yeah.
I do remember that.
And they're like, yeah, that was amazing. And then you went to this. And I'm like, yeah, that was dope. You know it better than I do. Like, you probably reading all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I forgot some of these adventures, and like some of these posts and stuff. But I think that's really a testament to anybody creating. It's like, you don't always get your flowers like right away, and just keep creating, keep putting out content. It touches people in all sorts of ways that you have no idea. And every once in a while it circles back around. But, anybody that's creating and building something or like being creative, like keep going, because you don't know where it's going to take you.
Yeah. The consistency is, if you can do that, if you can keep being consistent and just loving the process, then dude, it's going to be fulfilling. Yeah. All right, brother. Love you, man.
Cheer. Thanks, bro. Love you, man.
Peace.
Cheers.